they're losing and they assign that loss to maybe this isn't the right thing for me, or maybe I'm just not smart enough, or I'm just not good enough, or I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough team. And it's like, no, you're just an amateur playing among professionals and you're getting beat because they're more committed. I mean, I might not be making friends there, but that's what I think. That's what I think the truth is. Your brain lies to you. Your brain is one of the things that holds you back from building a great personal brand. And what we're talking about today on this episode is what are the lies and the limiting beliefs that experts and entrepreneurs have that prevent them from building a truly successful personal brand. I'm Rory Vaden, co-founder of Brand Builders Group, joined by my wife and business partner, AJ Vaden. Let's go.
Yeah, like one of the things I want to make sure we nuance is that you said lies that your brain believes that prevent you from building your personal brand or business.
Sure.
Right. And so I just want to make sure as we're talking about this, that it's not just a personal brand. Like these things impact your business, impacts sales, impacts relationships, impacts all the things. So we'll take it through the lens of personal brand, i.e. business.
I mean, when I even say the term personal brand, I almost think of a personal brand as just a marketing engine for the business, right? For most of the people. So it's.
I know that's what you think.
But
like it's good for everyone who's listening or watching to make sure that you know that we have that context and that filter as we talk about all of this.
Totally. Yeah. So let's dive in. I want to ask you. Let's have a conversation about what do you think, based on our own experience, our hundreds of clients, and just what we kind of observe and what our data tells us is happening. What do you think are some of the biggest limiting beliefs that people think about their personal brand or their business that is really holding them back? It's not really true.
Yeah. And so I'm going to use a large spectrum of what I have noticed to be true in the world. And this isn't just from working with hundreds of clients. This goes all the way back to childhood, to school, to parenting, to previous employment. And literally just this week, I'm talking about my 8-year-old Jasper this week, we were talking about doing schoolwork. He's, why do I have to do that? I've already done it. I'm like, you've done it one time. He goes, yeah, but I've already done it. Why do I have to do it again? Then, let's all take it back to our school days. Like, how many times did we say, like, why do I have to do this again? I already know how to do this. I've already done it. I already know this. And then you think about professional athletes. Think about how many times they have to swing a bat, how many times they have to throw a ball, how many times they have to run the exact same route. And I think that we lack a little bit of some of that in business when you parallel it to sports.
So you're saying the lie that people believe, or the limiting belief they have, is I shouldn't have to keep doing this. I already know how to do this. Why should I have to keep doing it?
I think people get bored with monotony. We have a constant shiny object syndrome of there must be a better way. This is too easy. This is too simple. There must be a way for me to get faster other than just practicing. There must be a way for me to not have to do it over and over again. And I think that we just naturally as humans get bored with doing the same thing over and over again. And we want to keep changing it up when the truth is the more you do something, the better you get at it and the easier it becomes. And I think the lie we believe is that it can't be that easy. It can't be that simple. When we think about social media, it can't be as simple as just post something every day. It can't be as simple as just put some money behind it. Like there's got to be some complex formula that I just don't know. There's got to be some secret. And I think we think that about sales. I think we think that about marketing. I think we think that about relationships. And I think about often, like as a parent, how many times I'm like, I know you did it. We're just going to do it again and again and again and again until it's second nature. But somewhere in adulthood, we forget the power of consistency, the power of doing the small thing over and over and over again. And we believe the lie that it's that easy.
It reminds me of it's this is, I think, the difference between amateurs and professionals, right? I've heard it said that amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they cannot get it wrong. And that really is true. Like
Hmm.
the example that you're using of sports, it's like, okay, yeah, I can shoot a 3-pointer and make it once, but Steph Curry does it so many
Yeah,
times
every time.
that
Yeah.
it's almost impossible for him to miss.
Hmm.
And that is what it takes to build a personal brand. It's like you have to be brilliant at the basics. You have to master the fundamentals of content creation, lead generation, sales, follow up, delivering, over delivering, and renewing. And if you get those fundamentals right, it's like there is nothing else.
I think a lot of that is we believe a lie that there's some complex formula, some hidden secret, something that we don't know yet. And so instead of doing the thing that we do know, we try all these new things. And we keep trying all these new things, meaning we never do it enough to become really sophisticated at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we see that building your business, building your brand, social media, marketing, the list goes on and on. There's just some truth in the fundamentals. And I think there's some timeless truths that it doesn't matter what new technology is out there, the emergence of AI, all the new things. There's just some basic truths in sales and marketing and business that are timeless.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really matter anything that new that comes along. It's just a new medium to do the same old thing.
Totally. Totally. All right. The second limiting belief that I think people have about building their personal brand and in their business is they think, I'm not good enough to do this.
Mm.
They look at other people. They want to do it. They want to be influential. They want to speak on the stages. They want to have people reading their books or watching their shows. They want that, but deep down, they actually struggle with believing they're not good enough.
Mm.
I think, the classic word for this is imposter syndrome. And even though they may have spent 10 or 15 or 20 years becoming an expert at their craft, they still somehow struggle with like, I don't know that I deserve to be heard by the world, or I don't know that I'm smart enough or good enough to be heard, by the rest of the world. So that's what I think is one of the other most common limiting beliefs in our community or the people we work with.
Like, how do you see that showing up? Because I think there's a lot of different byproducts of that.
Good
But what I
question.
think this would be good of, for all of you who are listening of going like, well, is that me? I don't know. So what are some of the symptoms, some of the signs
Mm.
that show up when this is the root?
So one of the symptoms that people don't talk a lot about, but that since you asked me directly, I think is really, really indicative of this is they're a dabbler. They dabble in things, and it kind of comes back to what we were
Mm,
talking about a little bit before. They'll dabble like, oh yeah, maybe I'll learn a little bit about this, or maybe I'll start a podcast for a little bit, or maybe like I'll start writing a speech, or I'll start writing a book, or I'll start writing a blog or two, or I'll join a membership for like a couple months or even a year, but like they're dabbling.
mm,
And because they don't really believe, and if they really believed it was possible, they would commit to doing whatever it took
mm,
to make it happen. And the truth is, it's not that they're not qualified to do it, it's that they're not committed enough to do the work it takes to make it happen. And so somebody struggling with imposter syndrome is a dabbler, and they're competing against committed ultra performers, and they're losing, and they assign that loss to maybe this isn't the right thing for me, or maybe I'm just not smart enough, or I'm just not good enough, or I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough team. And it's like, no, you're just an amateur playing among professionals, and you're getting beat because they're more committed.
mm.
I mean, I might not be making friends there, but that's what I think. That's what I think the truth is.
But I don't disagree with that. I was just curious. Well, I think, kind of on that same lines, you could categorize this as another lie, a separate lie, but I think it falls within this category. So I'm going to bring it up because it's in the same vein as I think one of the reasons people really, I don't know if the word dabbler is the one I would use, but I think the reason they don't commit is because of comparison. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
that's a
imposter
part of this.
syndrome
Yeah.
actually is the result of comparison. And I think what most people do when they're really suffering from this concept of imposter syndrome, which is basically believing that what you have done isn't as good or as important as somebody else, even though it's the same thing, is at the root of that. Like, even in that definition, it's going, oh no, you're comparing yourself to someone else. And you're comparing your step one to someone else step 1000, your day one to someone else's day 1000, your year one to someone else's year 10, and they're not comparable. And when we do that, what we don't do is see all the work behind the scenes.
That's it. Yeah.
And I think that's where we all suffer, is like we see the end result and compare our behind the scenes mess to someone else's very well curated end result. And therein lies comparison. And I think that's one of the downfalls of social media, because everything can look so presented and it can be the end product. But we all have to remember, like, no one saw the camera crew scrambling behind the scenes, or the amount of lighting prep or script prep, or all the years of experience that it took to make that 30-second video, or the amount of camera practice to feel confident when that red light goes on. Nobody thinks about that, right? Just, you mentioned Steph Curry earlier, right? They see him in the game, but they didn't see all the missed shots. They didn't see the years and decades of practice. And I think that's where we all fall short of just taking a peek behind the scenes of like, why am I comparing at all?
Yeah, that's so good. And social media is like the perfect little capsule of this, because you are literally seeing an edited, polished, perfected highlight reel of a bright moment in somebody's life. And your feed is just filled with that and just all the hours going into it. I saw an interview with Alex Hormozy recently, and he made a comment that I thought was really profound. He said, yeah, the more advanced we've gotten in content production, the more we spend time planning and the less time shooting. He's like, all of our time is spent in the planning, and then the shooting is just like, we come in and we're ready to go. And I thought, gosh, that's a professional. That's what a professional is.
But that's the same thing in business and in sales. It's like, a great sale happens because there was immense planning behind the scenes. There was research, there was review, there was product knowledge, there was training, and then a seeming, short 30 to 60 minute conversation ends well. And it's like, wow, you're such a great salesperson. It's like, no, you're such a great practicer, right? You're such a good rehearser. You're such a good student. You're such a good learner. Things don't happen without all of that. And so I think a lot of us struggle with this idea of, I can't do it, because they're looking at someone else who's done all the practice and comparing them to themselves who have done none of the practice.
Yeah. Shout out to our friend Phil M. Jones. We've had him on this podcast before. He wrote a book called Exactly What to Say. And I love, one of his core philosophies is, the worst time to think about what you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. Right? Like, and that's like a classic example of an amateur. Like, the worst moment to like think about what you're going to do or say is like in the moment it needs to happen. You haven't prepped, you haven't planned, like you're not experienced leading into it.
Yeah, because you haven't practiced it. And this is a good reminder for all of us. No one is good the first time you do it. No one knows what you're doing the first time you do it. It doesn't matter who you are, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, it doesn't matter. They did not know what they were doing until they did it.
I wish we still had, you remember we made, one of our first products was that DVD called Speaker that showed all the clips of me speaking. It was horrible. I was speaking at comedy clubs and Toastmaster clubs, and we had it on film. And then you could see the world championship, world championship at the end. That's such a powerful thing. All right.
So I want to add one more thing to this, because I think it's really important. What I have found, internally within our company, at my previous, profession as a sales trainer, working with companies, working with teammates, here's one of the biggest things that I would say about this comparison thing that just drives me nuts, is that people would rather fail live in the moment with a client versus, I guess, even be open to the embarrassment of role playing with their leader. And it's one of the things that as a leader I've always done. It's like, no, we're going to role play this. And they're just like, no. I'm like, no, we're going to role play this right now.
They feel so awkward.
And it's like, we do that with practice interviews and presentations and sales conversations. And it's like, Why would you expect for you to be good the first time you ever did it with a paying client? And I would just, I caution to say, like, it doesn't matter what your profession is. It's like, it is your job to practice before you go play the game.
Could you imagine a pilot that learned
Oh,
how to
Lord.
fly with the first time with
Oh,
people, or
my
a
gosh.
surgeon that
We
was
were
like,
talking about the other day. I was like, I want the gray hair man in my pilot seat. And,
yeah,
I don't want the fresh new person learning all this stuff. I'm like, no, I don't want your new techniques.
yeah.
I want the old tried and true techniques. Thank you very much. But I would say the same thing when you think about going on camera or going on a stage. Like, how dare you think that somebody should pay you to speak in front of their people and that's the first time you've done it?
Mm.
Like, so I think there's some humility in going like, no, like we got to take it back to, no, I'm going to practice like I play and we're going to do it right. And we're going to do it again and again and again so that when you get on stage, people are like, whoa, even if it was the first time. Because the truth is, it's never the first time.
Totally. I
All
love
right,
it.
next one.
Okay. I've got another really big limiting belief that I think holds people back. I want to make sure we get to it, but do you have a burning one that you want to share? Or should I just jump in and share
I
mine?
mean, I don't know if I would say it was burning, so go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound like a sales pitch, but this is not a sales pitch.
Are you sure?
Well, it's always a sales pitch. But I genuinely believe one of the most debilitating limiting beliefs that holds people back from building their personal brand is that they are afraid to invest money into their business.
Mm.
And I don't just mean coaching. I mean, they're afraid to invest into a nicer camera. They're afraid to invest into a nicer logo, into a nicer website, into running ads, into hiring a team member, into paying better to get better team members. And there is this fear always with money that entrepreneurs have, especially when they're like really starting out, where they go, "Oh, I'm not going to hire you for coaching. You're just trying to take advantage of me." Or like, "Oh, I don't really need that camera. Like it's like it's probably not like necessary." And to an extent, nothing is necessary. Like nothing is, essential, going to make or break. Like no bit of coaching or equipment or person is going to make or break your business like you are. But every one of those decisions levels up. And when you compound the leveling up of all of those things, and I just think that people, they don't want to invest. And when you look at the people who are winning, they invest time and money into equipment, into education, into coaching, into staff, into personnel. Like they spend money on their business. And I think this is one of the most critical limiting beliefs that holds people back.
Where do you think that comes from?
Scarcity around money.
Yeah.
It comes from scarcity around money. And especially, I think about me growing up, somebody who didn't come from a lot of money. When you finally have like a little bit, it's like money is survival. And when you equate money to like survival, it's just like you cannot reinvest because it's like, this is my survival. And there is an evolution that happens on the way to becoming like a wealthier person. That is, money is a tool. And I use money as a tool to grow and make more money, among other things. And so I think we live in a world of scarcity financially, and I think there's a lot of horrible information about money. And frankly, there are no shortage of people trying to take advantage of you and take money out of your pocket in investment schemes and crappy coaches. And so there's a part of that I go, yeah, there's you get burned a few times and you're like, I'm never doing that again. But I think entrepreneurs actually ironically have poor people are actually the ones who are more emotionally attached to money. I can say this from having been there because it's like, this is my survival. I must have this. I can't let this go. I found that wealthy people are kind of emotionally detached from money. It's like a hammer.
Depends.
Many they view it more as a tool, right? And it's like, yeah, I'd be upset if I lost my hammer, but it's like it's just a hammer. Like I can go get another hammer and make it happen. So, anyways, I think that's a big one. What do you agree?
I would just say that there's a couple of things that you said. It's not that I disagree with. I think there's just some perspective shifts. And I think one of them is this whole idea, oh, I've been burned a few times, or I've even heard people say, I'll never do that again. I'll never pay for another conference. I'll never hire another coach because it was such a bad experience. And my response has always been, I don't know where this came from, but it's just like, well, didn't you learn from that experience? Like, isn't that in and of itself a great
A valuable
lesson
lesson.
of what to do, what not to do, what you like, what you don't like, what not to do next time, who not to hire next time?
Mm,
Like, isn't that valuable in and of itself? And I think that just comes back to the principle of uh, there's no failing, there's no bad decisions, there's only lessons learned, right? And I think if we can have that perspective shift when we think about learning and investing into your business, it's like, even if it fails, even if it doesn't work, even if it backfires, I will learn something
mm.
is a mentality, a perspective shift that helps, I think, people try again, do it again. And I think that's a really important thing is, yeah, like you're going to make mistakes. You're going to hire the wrong people. Things aren't going to work. Like, let's just call it what it is. Like, it's going to blow up in your face. It's going to backfire. Things are going to break and not work. What did you learn?
That's so good. I mean, that also makes me think of another key difference between wealthy people and average people financially is that wealthy people always think longer term. So a lot of people, especially if you don't have a lot of money, right? This was me, even as a young entrepreneur. I remember literally emptying my bank account, writing a check to Darren LaCroix for a humor class that was like, it literally was the last dollars in my account. Um, but I think about, I was like $2,000 or something for this one class, and that was a lot of money to me. And I go, oh my gosh, I've made tens of thousands of dollars over the course of my career from what I learned in those 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you don't have a lot of money, you're like, okay, I need to put $1 in the machine. And if I don't get two back today or tomorrow, I'm never doing this again.
Mm-hmm. What happens more frequently even is if I don't get it back in the short amount of time frame, I'm just going to quit altogether.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop altogether. And it's like success doesn't happen overnight, and growth and change definitely doesn't happen overnight or in a week or in a month or in a year sometimes. And it's like you got to have that long-term perspective. I would say one of the things that you said that I think is important to kind of highlight, it's, we live in an age and an era where learning and improving, there's just no excuses. Anything you want to learn is at your fingertips. Literally with a clickety clack of your typeboard, there it goes. Between all of the new, LLMs and blogs and podcasts, it's like no excuses. That doesn't mean it's all credible. Doesn't mean it's all, but that whole idea that, oh, I'm not going to invest. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to learn. It's like, we're just beyond that. There's no excuse for that in today's world.
And I love what you're saying there about like, we have spent so much money on kind of crappy or mediocre coaching or crappy or mediocre like services or crappy or mediocre like, courses or knowledge or information or tools that we bought. But it's like, it's valuable even if it doesn't work, because it's like learning. I think it was Thomas Edison who said something like, I learned it's valuable negative information. It's
Mm.
like you have to learn 1,000 things that don't work to find the one thing that does work.
Well, yeah, and I would say it's like I've read plenty of books that I don't recommend, plenty of conferences that I wouldn't go to again. Like there's a lot of that. And I can honestly say I learned something from every single book, from every single coach, from every single conference. It may not have been a multitude of things, but at least one thing. And my approach has always been whatever I'm going to do, what's the one thing? I don't need 10 things. I'm not going to do 10 things. I need one thing. What's the one thing? And I've been to many events where it's like I left halfway through, a third of the way through, not because it was bad, but it was like, I got what I needed. I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And if we all go through with this approach of just like, what's the one thing? What's the one thing I need? What's the one thing that's a takeaway for me? And often if you just open up your mindset and just go, I don't need a lot of things. I don't need all the things. I need one thing that I can go and actually change or start doing or stop doing or see differently. Even, a lot of times I just leave with a perspective shift, and that is worth it to me. And so I think, again, all of those are just choices of going, how do I spend my time? How do I spend my money in order to get the results that I'm looking for? And then nothing is a bad investment. Everything is a good investment because you got something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. I want to ask you a question, which is if somebody's watching right now and they're struggling with these three limiting beliefs that we have talked about. So they basically, have like the novelty addiction of like the new thing. They have imposter syndrome or they have a scarcity around money. What do you think they could do in the next 7 days to do a mindset reset, if you will? Like, we've been there in all three of these at many times in many places. What what would you tell to somebody if they're struggling with any of these things? You go, the next 7 days, here's what you should focus on to shake free.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is to go back through these things, which could be the novelty addiction or what I would call the shiny object syndrome. Could be the imposter syndrome or i.e. comparison, or it's the scarcity of money, which I think you can also liken it to what am I I think it's a lot of that comes to I'm choosing to see what I don't have versus what I can glean from this. And I think all of those are to say which one do you suffer from? Maybe they're all of them, but let's pick one, right? I think the first thing you got to do in the next 7 days is go, where is this showing up in my
Mm,
life? And you have to pinpoint the catalyst of it. And I would just encourage you to pinpoint which one of those three things is really nagging at your soul because there's typically one of them. And then I would say, this is really just have some time of reflection. Grab a journal, get outside, and give yourself 30 minutes to go, where is that coming from? What was the event that sparked this in my life? Because I believe that when you can pinpoint where it started or what triggered it, now you can take control over it. Right. And I think the reason that most of us keep living in this hamster wheel of the same thing, just, happening again and again, ruminating in our lives is because we don't have control over where it started. So we can rewrite the narrative. And so if you're really struggling from, imposter syndrome or comparison, then you got to sit down and go, when did that start? Where was it? What was it? What happened that started that? Because there was always an event. There was always a moment where there was a trigger that then began this pattern in your life. And I think it doesn't take us long. You just got to have the time and give yourself the mental space and permission to go there. Because once you do, and once you can identify it, you can actually start to make tangible changes. You can say, like, were you compared to someone else in the classroom? Were you compared to a sibling, right? Were you compared to other people on your team that were perhaps better at you at that season in your life at a sport or, school or whatever it was? And I think a lot of it is just going back to where did that start so that that's not true in your life today. It was an event that happened and it was a lie because this whole episode is about lies.
yeah.
These are lies. These are not truths. Those lies started when you started to believe something that wasn't true about yourself. And you got to go back and go, when did that lie start? And how can I start to speak truth over myself to combat that lie? Because it's not who you are today. We're believing things today that started from one thing that happened years ago or decades ago, and we haven't been able to let them go. That's what I would do in the next 7 days to truly, really start to eradicate these lies from your life.
I love that. I love
Yep.
that. All right. So we need to go to the community
Yes.
question. I want to wrap up. I want to give you three specific affirmations or mantras or beliefs that you could use to rewrite if you're struggling with these. These are things that have helped me. So number one, if you are struggling with this issue of like shiny object syndrome, the mantra I always remind myself, it's in our book. If you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. Number two, if you're struggling with imposter syndrome and comparison, I would encourage you. This is a quote that I think about often. It's from Mark Twain. He said, "Each man is my superior in some way. And therefore, I am superior to each man in some way." Right. So we all have value to learn and gain from each
Mhm.
other. Number three, if you're struggling with scarcity around money, I would encourage you to say money is a tool that I invest and I use it to bring me more money. So those are three little belief patterns you could adopt or try on and see if that helps you.
Love it. All right. So in this community section, right, this is one of the favorite times of this episode because we get to answer a question from our Brand Builders Group community. And everyone gets to submit a question, and then they vote up on which one we're going to talk about on the show today. So let me tell you,
this is a good one.
I know this is from Derek. He says, I'm a financial advisor with real expertise. I know my stuff, but I freeze every single time I try to film content. You're not alone, Derek. It's not that I don't know what to say. I just feel, let's highlight that word, all caps, feel like I'm going to say something wrong or look stupid on camera. My coach keeps telling me it's a mindset issue, but that advice hasn't helped. Is there an actual tactical step-by-step way to train your brain to self-sabotaging when the camera is on?
My gosh, this is such
a great question and applicable to 99% of us.
Yes.
I have a few, but do you want to start?
Sure. So to me, like everything that we teach, there is a mental part of this, and then there's a technical part of this. Since he's saying that he's been attacking the mental part, I'm going to talk about a couple technical things. Okay. So number one, most technical tip I have if you feel nervous on camera is hit record on the camera long before you actually go to talk to it. So let it just be recording and just sit in the room and get used to like, oh, the camera's on. And it's like, because if you have to like hit record and start talking, there's like this pressure of this moment being on. But if you just let the camera roll and just like, oh, the camera's just rolling all the time, you feel less of like, okay, time to like turn on and like go into presenter mode. And you get comfortable with the idea of just, oh, I'm being recorded. It's not a big deal. We can edit it after. And you're more likely to just talk to the camera like you would in your normal voice and not go into like presenter mode or influencer mode. Because I think that's the big tip here is don't think about looking at a camera and like, don't think about I'm talking to thousands of people. Pretend the camera is like a face and talk to the camera as if it's like a person in your normal voice. So
yeah, I think that's good.
Technical tips.
Mine are very similar to that. So I'll just kind of tag on to that. Is if you have a hard time talking to the camera, it's because you're really talking to yourself. And that's weird and it's awkward. So don't talk to yourself. Here's two things that you can do. One, literally print out a picture of your avatar or your favorite client or your spouse or your best friend or whoever you want, and tape it above the camera. And so you're not talking to the camera, a lens, you're talking to a person. So what we tell people to do is like literally print out like who's your ideal client, right? Who's the person that you're making this content for? Or what do you imagine they would look like? Or, just have a friendly face or whatever it is, but talk to the picture. Don't talk to the camera, talk to the picture. And it really helps just go, okay, this is actually for a person. And it becomes less about what you're saying to the camera and more about serving the person. The other thing you can do is use a teleprompter, right? It's like if you know your stuff and you know what to say and you just freeze when the camera goes on and your mind goes blank, that happens to a lot of us. That's just like our nerves are kicked in. So give yourself a little bit of a study guide. So use a teleprompter. Like we have plenty of people who use note cards on stages, right? Like that's a normal thing. Don't feel like you can't use that here. So use a teleprompter or have a postcard, like a giant poster board in the back, like those things help. And then one other quick tool or tactic I would say that would be really helpful is if you really freeze with that, then just have someone interview you. So you can have a real conversation, a real dialogue. And then you just need a good editor, right? So that you can cut things as they need. But it's like have someone actually stand behind the camera and ask you the questions. And then you're talking to them. So if the picture thing doesn't work, the teleprompter doesn't work, turning the camera on early doesn't work, then you just need a real life human that you can have a real life conversation with, because that is what makes great content. That's what the conversational tone of even, episodes like this happen because you're just talking to a real human. And so get you someone to stand behind the camera and just ask you the questions.
Love that. I can't resist the opportunity to do a shout out for Nashville Creative Spaces right now. So we own a building in Nashville called Nashville Creative Spaces, and we have a teleprompter in that space. And
a live human.
And a live human. And one of the reasons I'm bringing it up is because people always tell us, I booked the studio, so I didn't have to worry about the right mic and the right camera and the right lighting. But what I got most was your team coaching me through the fear what to say or how to say it, and also just having the teleprompter right there.
That's right.
We solve all that problem for you. So you can check out Nashville Creative Spaces. And if you are a personal brand who goes, you know what, I am struggling with some of these limiting beliefs that we've talked about on this episode, and I do need the combination, the perfect blend of mental and tactical, and I want the accountability of being in a community or even having a one-on-one coach, go to freebrandcall.com/podcast. You can request a call and talk with someone from our team to see if you might fit to be a part of our mission, our community of mission-driven messengers. And we'd love to get a chance to meet you. So for myself and AJ, this is a wealthy and well-known podcast. Share this episode with someone who you think needs it, and don't let those limiting beliefs hold you back. We'll catch you next time.
Are you being a dabbler right now?
Don't be a dabbler. Subscribe.